NFL offseason and free agency and all of that and the draft is about to be on our way. And as a Dolphins fan, I spent some time and talked about the Dolphins and what they should do in the draft. And now today we're going to take a look at what I think they should do in the offseason and free agency and all the non-draft stuff. So this plays with what I drafted and who I drafted, and this is going to go and work with that. This is basically if I was in charge, these are the moves that I would have made and that I plan on making. So to start off, my biggest priority is to re-sign Mike Gesicki, re-sign Emmanuel Ogbah, and restructure Xavier Howard's contract. These three guys are very huge. Gesicki, obviously a big part of the offense, and Ogbah and Xavier Howard are huge pieces of the defense. Xavier Howard is very essential to this defense. This team plays off their secondary. I'm also doing this based off the fact that I would play the same defense that Flores ran. Josh Boyer is still the defensive coordinator, so I'm pretty much keeping the same concept, the same style of defense in play, and I'm just making it better, making different things work. And to do that, you need to get Xavier Howard back. You need to restructure his contract to make him happy, and you need to make sure Emmanuel Ogbah is still there. I know Emmanuel Ogbah was a big guy that came in and wanted to play with Brian Flores, so you could see him leaving, but I think you got to get it done because he's been amazing on the edge. It's been a very good signing. Give him whatever amount of money he wants. I think it's important for him to stay and really help without the development of Jalen Phillips alongside him on the other edge, who also had a good season this year. And as far as Gesicki goes, you need this guy on offense. Don't plan on signing any receivers. I would not be opposed to it, but I think the way the Will Fuller signing played out, I would just stick to it. Stick with Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle. And if you watch my draft video, you know that I'd be selecting Justin Ross as well. And I'd be bringing back some of the smaller role guys. But as far as big name receivers, I'm not picking up on anybody. I think Preston Williams is really good. The guy's been injured a lot for the Dolphins, and I think he deserves a shot in a year at full at number 3. And if it doesn't work out, then you can go make some moves. But if Devontae Adams is not signed by anybody for a while and you can get him on a relatively friendly deal, I'd definitely be taking a look at Devontae Adams and as well as some other receivers. If anyone falls and isn't getting a big contract, then I'd pick him up. But I'm not going out of my way to sign a receiver this year. I'm just not big on the receiver class the way the NFL is this year. The next move I'm going to make, my first big free agent signing, is Raheem Moster. I like Raheem Moster a lot. He's very fast, and he knows Mike McDaniel's team. He knows his run game, and I think it's important for a coach to bring in some guys from his team. We saw McDaniel bring in some San Francisco coaches. Let's have him bring in a couple of San Francisco players. I like Mostert a lot. I think he's a really good running back. I love his speed, and I hope the Dolphins can bring him in. He's just a good running back, and the Dolphins need it. I have us drafting Brian Robinson, and I still like Myles Gaskin, and Duke Johnson had a good end of the season. But I still fine with the running back by committee concept. But just bringing a guy that your new offensive coach, who's offensive minded, has worked with, and see what they can do. Next move I'm going to make is I want to sign either Matt Freitas or Ryan Jensen. These dudes are both centers, and I think they're very important just because you need a guy on the offensive line that's going to lead it. Freitas was with the Carolina Panthers, and Jensen was Tom Brady's center for the Bucs for the past couple of years. These dudes both make around the same amount of money, and this is probably the biggest free agent signing. These are the two dudes that I'm giving the most money to just because of how much I value the center position. I was drafting 2 offensive linemen, and having a center in between the guys that we draft and the young guys that we already have would be very important just to glue everything together, a guy that knows what he's doing. And I think just the offensive line has been weak for the Dolphins over the years, and you bring in a guy that knows what he's doing and can help the young guys learn, because you're going to have a new blocking scheme with Mike McDaniel, and then you're going to try to have a better run game. So bring in guys that know what they're doing, guys that have been around, and see what you can make work. Next move I'm going to make is, this is just an overall thing. You got to replace anyone who leaves. So there's a lot of guys, especially on the defense, that were in love with Brian Flores, and I can't blame him. Brian Flores was great with the players. His problems were with the front office. But you got to try to bring these guys back, or if someone leaves, you got to go out there to get them. Some guys aren't happy with the move, and I can't blame them, but like Nick Needham was talked about, he had expressed his disinterest in the move that the Dolphins made to get rid of Flores. If a guy like that leaves, guy did really well for you this season and did well in the past, you got to bring somebody else in. Same goes to anybody else. Potential talk about Byron Jones leaving. If Byron Jones leaves, if you trade him, whatever, go out and sign Stephon Gilmore, something like that. Like if one of your top corners leaves, bring in a top corner. If one of your lower slot corners leave, bring in a slot corner. A guy that would potentially be a steal in the free agent market would be Eli Apple. I know he had a bit rough game in the Super Bowl, but he was pretty solid all season and helped the Bengals get there. So someone like that, I'm trying not to spend too much money, but the Dolphins have money to spend, and they definitely have moves to make. And the final move I'm making is special teams. I was not a fan of Michael Pilardi this season. I'd be in favor of bringing Corey Bajorquez in, the hunter from Green Bay, just because I see him as a better fit. He's got a bigger leg, and the special teams is something that I see a lot of value in, and I just think the Dolphins' special teams wasn't up to standard as it should be this year, and I think it should improve, and it's was very good 2 years ago when they were better, and I feel like it took a step back and that hurt them sometimes. So those are the moves I'm making. I'm not going crazy overboard. I know the Dolphins have cap space. I'm not going out and signing every big name free agent. I'm signing guys that make sense because I think you'll see later on you got to fill with the holes you have before you bring in stars to fill roles. So I'm filling the holes in the offensive line. I'm getting guys that I think will fit, and then when we have a running scheme, then I'll get a running back. When we have a passing game, then I'll bring in a big time receiver. Those guys aren't going to make changes overnight.